So how do you figure out these bass? Welcome back to another episode of Bassing with Captain Lou. Number one question I get often is, Cap, how do you establish a bite out here in the Everglades? I get this question a lot for people who just start fishing the Everglades or who are new or transplants or are coming to visit down here in South Florida. They want to fish the Everglades. They hear the Everglades reputation with the nice peacock bass and the nice bass, but they just want to have an understanding of what to do. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and cover that. I'm going to cover the ABCs of how to establish a pattern, especially today. Today's been a very windy day. So I'm going to go ahead and cover some nuts and bolts of how I establish a pattern in these type of conditions and in this time of year, because we are approaching May. Stick around, it's going to be a pretty informative video. So this video is going to jump right in, straight to the point on how I establish a pattern. Please understand that patterns change on a day-to-day basis. So this pattern is specific to today. We have a lot of wind. Okay, the bass aren't like the most cooperative, or the peacock as well are not the most cooperative, but I was still able to establish a pattern. So listen carefully, take a lot of notes, ask a lot of questions down below. I will get to them as quickly as I can, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to break down the water and how to break down this bite. Stick around. Not a big bass, but it's a start. So in this case, what I did was I moved locations. I was working an area for an hour. I just didn't like it, didn't feel fishy. I have been fishing this area for a little bit, and I know that the fish are in here. I just don't know how the bite was going to be today. So as you guys know, I mean, I love the artificial stuff, so I'm working the bank. So I start with top water. My top water is my favorite. So I start with top water, and then I just start working I start working the area to try to gauge to see the fish's mood. In this case, that bass just came out of the vegetation. I thought it was a nice Oscar, but no, it happened to be a bass. So I'll take it. So let me explain the conditions. As you guys can see over my shoulder, right now it's pretty flat. But what's gonna happen is today the wind's gonna pick up. It's been a windy week, but it always starts like this. It starts off nice and quiet, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose with the wind. So for right now, as you guys can see, it's very still, but I'm just listening and I'm watching to see what's going on. So if you notice when I cast, in this case, I'm fishing a Spook boyo. If you guys have been following my social media lately, you guys know I've been putting a beat down on the fish with this lure. So what I like doing with the Spook boyo, you guys are gonna notice that I just like taking a long cast, and then I just let the water settle. I let the water calm down, and then from there I start working the lure. But I'm studying the water around the lure. Are the fish coming out? Are they exploding on the lure? Are they coming out to investigate? So I just take my time and break down what's happening around that lure to see if it's something that I'm going to stick around with or to quickly change. So as I mentioned, in this example, I'm using the Spook boyo. But I'll do this for every single topwater bait that I use. And that is, if you noticed, I changed things up. Yes, I've been throwing this for quite some time. I'm 15 or 20 minutes just to gauge the bite. But I'm doing different things with the bait. I'm fishing it slowly, I'm fishing it quickly, I'm doing intermittent stop. I am not, just because the bite is slow, or it's slow right now, I'm not going to dismiss the lure, because I might come across a sequence that gets the fish to come up to investigate. But again, after about 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so of varying speeds and retrieves and all that stuff, and I'm not getting a bite, then I'm gonna switch. So I think what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna switch to a bottom application to see if maybe they're just hunkering down on the bottom. So we'll see how this starts to develop. So I've been throwing the Spook for quite some time. Well, not quite some time, but I've been throwing it for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. I'm getting activity, meaning I'm getting fish boiling on it, following it, but I'm not getting them to commit. Now, it could be Oscars, it could be cichlids. I did see a peacock. So I know that the line is active, that this fishing line is active. But I need to do something to convince them to bite. So I'm gonna switch to a soft plastic bait. I think I'm gonna switch to the Fluke, and let's see if I can coax those fish to actually commit to the bait. so I know this is a tiny bass. But like I mentioned, I switch over to the Fluke, and I'm still working that outside vegetation line, and I'm starting to get more swirls and a little bit more commitment. Now granted, that's a little bass, but it gives me clues, and I'm gonna keep building on those clues and hopefully result into a nicer catch. Another fish that you're gonna have to contend with out here are Oscars. People enjoy catching them. They're fun. People eat them. But they can be a pain in the butt sometimes. Another species that we're known for, the Mayan Cichlid. Again, people go nuts for them to catch them and eat them. We have these by the gajillions. They're pretty fun to catch if you're into it. But if you're targeting peacock and bass, these guys are going to interfere with a lot of your approaches. There he is. Bigger peacock. Nice. As you guys could see, just hit that Fluke and notice something over my shoulder. Being decent, still fighting in my hand. Notice over my shoulder, the wind is really starting to pick up now. So those kind of changes help sometimes. So in just like that, in very short order, in this case I caught a little peacock. Just by doing the change, the bait change, caught an Oscar, a bass, and a peacock. Haven't changed locations, still fishing the vegetation line. The only thing I did was I switched baits, okay? I went from a hard bait to a soft bait. I went to a Fluke. And I started focusing on the top and middle level of the water column, and that seems to get them going. They're committing a lot more. Listen, I understand the fish are small, but you gotta start somewhere in order to start figuring out the pattern. This is a better bass. This is a better fish right here. This guy came out of the pads and just started following the Fluke. Every time the Fluke moved, it moved. And then I went ahead and killed it. And as it fluttered, he just came up and just lipped it. The problem for him was that I was watching this whole ordeal, and it just went ahead and crunched it. So all in all, it was a fun outing. Again, when it comes to establishing the bite, like I explained, I just worked the vegetation line and I changed baits. I didn't change baits often. I gave each bait that I tried. In this case, I tried the boyo, I tried the stick bait, I tried, what else did I try? Oh, I tried a prop bait or a whopper plopper type of bait. So I changed things up until I came across the Fluke. And the reason why I think they came across the Fluke is because they wanted some mid-water type of presentation along the vegetation line. So when you're out here, you got to give the bait some time to establish itself. Don't be in such a rush to change things if you don't get a bite in 5 to 10 minutes. You got to give it time. In this case, I was working the Fluke for about 10 to 15 minutes when I figured out what they were doing. And now, was there a bite every single time? No, there wasn't. I went on stretches of 50-yard stretches where I didn't catch anything, and then all of a sudden I would hit a stretch that was 3 bass in a row. So you got to change things up. You got to be very patient when you work these lines. Hopefully I was able to teach you guys something in regards to establishing a bite out here in the Everglades for this time of year. Like this video, share this video, better yet subscribe. The community is growing. I'll see you guys again soon. Take care of yourselves.